안녕하세요. 매일매일 운동하기를 실천하고 있는 동타 왕코입니다. 지금 10시가 조금 넘었고요. 오늘은 수능 날이죠. 수능이 무사히 끝났으면 좋겠습니다. 너무 졸립니다. 오늘도 영어학원 갔다 왔고요. 야간 근무. 오늘 밤만 출근하면 야간 끝이에요. 일단 운동하겠습니다. 뭐 말이 필요하겠습니까? 주식시장 오늘 수능 때문에 10시에 열렸는데 삼성전자 7만원 넘었습니다. 하이닉스도 11만원 넘었고요. 얼마까지 올라갈는지. 그리고 확진자는 500명도 넘었습니다. 코로나가 언제 끝날란지. 운동할게요. 스트레칭 위주로 하고 그 다음에 복근 운동 위주로 하겠습니다. 지금 운동할 때 CNN.
The president's state of mind as much as the state of the republic. It just hit the Washington Post. The headline reads, Trump is said to be livid at Barr, with one official suggesting termination possible. CNN political analyst Josh Dawsey shares the byline. He joins us now by phone. Josh, so how angry is President Trump and Attorney General Barr?
Hi, Anderson. The president's angry with Attorney General Barr for two reasons. He was described as livid by a couple of officials in the White House to us today. One, that AG Barr came out and directly contradicted him on voter fraud and said that they had done, investigations. They had looked into matters across the country and not found any sort of substantive voter fraud evidence that would overturn the election. And two, because Barr did not deliver on the Durham report. The president saw the Durham report as a cudgel against the Mueller investigation that he wanted delivered before November 3rd, Election Day. And Barr, even though he has appointed the special counsel to continue looking into that, he has not delivered the report that the president wanted. And yesterday there was quite a conflagration with the president. He was described as angry again about him all day today, and folks in the West Wing are trying to decide right now what the president's going to do. I don't think there's been any sort of final decision, at least as of a couple of sources I talked to about an hour ago, but there certainly is a lot of feeling that it could happen.
I don't quite understand the point. I mean, he's got, a couple weeks left. I mean,
right.
It seems odd that, I understand he's upset and livid and stuff, but it just seems odd to me. Given the blowback that Barr is getting from the White House over the comments, I know you spoke to a source who told you why Barr decided to speak out. What did he say?
Well, there was increasing pressure on Barr to speak out because the president was making these claims every day. There was a lot of attorney generals across the country who were coming out and saying they weren't seeing it. Barr has not had the best relationship with Rudy Giuliani and sees him, frankly, as a sideshow and someone who's not in the best interest of the president. There was lots of different concerns for Barr to speak out. To your first point, Anderson, the president also fired Mark Esper the Monday after the election. In fact, Chris Krebs, his cybersecurity director, he's fired, more than a dozen people across the government and agencies since November 3rd. There's a time between now and January 20th where folks are going to expect even more firings because he has nothing to lose, and he's frustrated that he's had a government that in his mind, and nothing was just true, but in his mind has not always worked to his satisfaction, has worked against him at times.
What has the president's relationship with Barr been like over the last couple of months?
Well, over the last couple of months, it's been quite tenuous. The president has wanted Barr to make more forceful claims of voter fraud to back up his accusations on that. He's wanted Barr to put out, the Durham report. He's wanted throughout the Attorney General Barr to say more about what the president alleges without evidence of substantiated widespread voter fraud. And DOJ, much to the president's chagrin, has not been on the president's side on a lot of this. Now, there are a lot of folks who would say that Bill Barr has been one of his most loyal cabinet secretaries. Obviously, after the Mueller report, he put out the favorable summary and was very critical of the Mueller report. He's been very defensive of the president in many ways. But it seems that the voter fraud accusations that the president's made over and over and over again is kind of a bridge too far for Bill Barr.
Yeah, he did make a comment I think it was earlier, a couple of months ago, saying that, well, it would be very easy for a foreign power to print up a bunch of phony ballots and send them in, and that would be undetectable. Of course, he didn't offer any evidence of that. That seemed like the farthest he went, backing up the president on, his fraudulent claims about the dangers of mail-in voting.
Right, and that was a claim that something could happen hypothetically. What the president has been saying in recent, weeks, Anderson, is that there were tens, if not hundreds of thousands of fraudulent ballots, that entire Dominion machines were corrupted, that there was a foreign conspiracy of lawyers that involved Hugo Chavez in Venezuela and other countries. I mean, some of these claims have been far-fetched even for some of Trump's biggest defenders in his orbit. So what Barr said a few months ago that was contentious at the time, that he thought a foreign power could potentially corrupt ballots, is different than what the president's been saying, which is that without evidence and by all accounts of government experts and others, that they had done that and they had corrupted the election. Those are a bit of two different things.
Yeah, Judge Dawsey, appreciate it. Thank you. We booked our next guest to talk pardons, but we're especially lucky to have them here in light of the breaking news right now. Andrew Weissman served as special counsel Robert Mueller's lead prosecutor. He's the author of the new book about it, Where Law Ends Inside the Mueller Investigation. Also with us, the author of many bestsellers, the legendary investigative journalist and CNN political analyst Carl Bernstein. Andrew, what is your reaction to the Washington Post reporting about the president and the attorney general?
So I am a little more cynical about Bill Barr. He was perfectly happy to be the amanuensis for the president when the president was riding high. And it's hard to not use the analogy of, rats, fleeing a sinking ship. And now that he's no longer in power, he's willing to separate himself. I think it remains to be seen whether he really pushed back on John Durham, for instance, and really wanted to do the president's bidding. I think there's a lot more to come on that story. So, I think Bill Barr, it's a little too little, way too late to just say that he's really having some integrity here.
Carl, what would firing the attorney general during a lame duck presidency actually accomplish?
It would make the base perhaps happy and continue to project the image of Trump as aggrieved and raging. Everything that Trump does is really about himself, his moods, his desires, his selfishness. But what we're really seeing in all the things you've talked about on this broadcast tonight is Trump is our first truly subversive president, always subverting the interests of the people of the United States, the interests of our national security, the interests of our people and their health and welfare, to his own selfish financial interests, political interests. It's never about the country. And this is one more instance of it. This is all personal. Everything with Trump is personal. And as a result, our national interest has been subverted by a president of the United States in all these areas, including pardons that he's talking about. It's about subverting the national interest for Donald Trump's interest and the interest of his grifter children, his own grift. We've never seen anything like this, and it's going to continue. And the people around him, some of them are horrified.
Andrew, I'm just stunned by time and time again, we've learned this lesson, and anybody who's been in the president's orbit certainly knows this lesson, that no matter how much you genuflect and prostitute yourself to the benefit of to benefit this president, that in the end, he will turn on you no matter how much you have degraded yourself. I mean, Jeff Sessions, Barr, all these people, are left in tatters, their, whatever reputations they once had, and the president chews them up and spits them out. Barr now, if the president spits him out, he won't even get to make money on the lecture circuit talking to, Trump supporters.
I think that's true, although it's conceivable that Barr did this deliberately to try and actually resurrect his reputation. And also, there are people who actually have sort of played the president correctly. I mean, Roger Stone was convicted by a jury and never spent a day in jail because he made it clear that if he got a pardon, he would not be talking. So there are people who can benefit from having this sort of very corrupt personal interests that's, as Carl said, is really driving what happens in the White House.
And Andrew, in your book, you drew a parallel between President Trump's pardon power and the mob. You said mobsters use the threat of whacking potential cooperators to keep everyone in line. The president had the power to pardon to reward those who stayed loyal. I'm wondering what you make of CNN describing a quote, a flurry of pardons expected to come. Do you think it's legal for the president to pardon himself?
I think the issue of his pardoning his friends and family, unfortunately, unless there can be a bribe shown, that is legal because the power is so broad. However, you cannot pardon for state crimes, you cannot pardon for future crimes, and the Supreme Court, may have to decide the issue whether you can pardon yourself. Clearly that wasn't contemplated by the framers, but we'll see if that ends up getting tested in a court of law.
Carl, I mean, if you're President Trump, you have the powers of the office available to you for the next 49 days. I mean, what do you do? Whom do you protect? Whom do you try to punish? Assuming, of course, he continues to show little to no interest in actually protecting the country from the pandemic.
Well, I think the first person that he wants to protect is probably Paul Manafort, his campaign manager, who is central to Andrew Weissman and Mueller's investigation, and whom there is considerable evidence was in contact with Russian principals and others, and passed information from the Trump campaign to the Russians. And I would say that pardon is almost certain, as are the pardons of his grifter children. One of the interesting things about pardon power is, though, it not only doesn't cover future offenses, and that goes to the question of lying. That there are going to be a lot of investigations ongoing in federal courts, federal prosecutors, I'd imagine.
원래 보통 풍선들 바람 잘 빠지지 않나?
People, his family, his advisors, and others. And what the Trump presidency is about is lying. Above all else, we've seen it this week once again. And lying in future investigations is not covered by the pardon power. So the pardon power, it's not absolute. I know Dallas can go ahead with these really unseemly pardons, which speak volumes to who he really is. Back to this idea of a subversive president willing to subvert the rule of law, national interest, all about himself. And at the same time, I think we're getting a picture that even the craven Republicans, especially in the Senate, are beginning to understand who they have protected all these years. And through this attempted coup in the final days of the presidency, Trump continues to attempt a coup to undermine democratic elections in our country. And these Republicans continue to enable it. And I think this is going to go, to their eternal shame.
Yeah, I think they long ago realized who that they were fronting for.
That's right.
Yeah, Andrew, I mean, President Trump claimed in that rambling propaganda video that we're not showing that the same people who failed to get him in Washington have sent every piece of information to New York so they can try and get him there. Is he right to worry about the New York investigations into his family business? Or, yeah, I mean, do you think he's right to be worried?
I certainly would be. I mean, it remains to be seen whether the Manhattan District Attorney's Office makes that case. But a federal pardon will have zero effect on a state investigation, whether it's tax fraud, bank fraud, money laundering. All of that could be brought against Donald Trump, his children, his businesses. And of course, you can't pardon yourself out of civil liability. So those are all things to worry about. But one thing it's important to note is, in spite of the president talking about, this is just retaliation, criminal cases have to be proved to a jury of civilians beyond a reasonable doubt. Proof is required. This is not a question of just retaliation. This is a question of, whether someone has all the proof that can support those charges.
Carl Bernstein, Andrew Weissman, appreciate it. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Good to be with you.
More next on President Trump's thinking these days with his flood of tweets and now even that self-serving video we touched on. I'll speak with the man who wrote the book that helped make him a celebrity, Tony Schwartz, next.
Air quality update in association with Copernicus, Europe's eyes on Earth. Quality Update in association with Copernicus, Europe's Eyes on Earth.
One of the things that we think will happen post-COVID is a very sharp focus on this idea of purpose. You know, why do companies exist? What is the social agenda they serve? And I think it's very likely you'll wind up into very distinct categories. You're either a hero or you're a villain. People will be looking for companies who do real things for real people.
It's the new travel ritual. On the next CNN Business Traveller, confusing COVID rules.
What do I have to do?
Trying to avoid quarantines.
The very word quarantine puts people off.
Empty airports, empty seats.
This is about confidence.
Unlocking air travel.
COVID testing at the gate.
We're facing testing times. Help! On the next CNN Business Traveller.
Top of the program of the unreal world that President Trump and his acolytes are now inhabiting, ranging from outright falsehoods about election fraud to the con job being pulled on supporters to raise money that'll mostly go to any future political adventures for the president and not to challenge the results of the election. Few people know this world and the man leading it better than my next guest, Tony Schwartz, co-author of, or actually author of The Art of the Deal and author of Dealing with the Devil, My Mother, Trump, and Me. Tony, the president keeps dangling this idea he may run again in 2024 as though that's what he should be focused on, while so far today there are more than 2,500 reported U.S. coronavirus deaths. What does it say to you about just how messy the next 49 days will be?
못하겠어.
Well, 49 days
or
4 more years of this. It's going to be grim. It's going to be grim, of course, because of COVID, but it's going to be grim because he's going to keep exceeding himself in the heinous decisions he makes in order to bring the rest of us down with him. But why, it's so interesting if you look at the front pages of newspapers, if you tune into cable shows, we're still talking about Trump. We've got a new president, but the dominant topic of conversation is Trump. Why? I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this, and it's that there's a core principle in psychology, which is that bad is stronger than good. So if one person threatens you and the other person wants to help you grow and live a good life, which one commands your attention? Trump is still a perceived threat. 49 days from now, I hope that diminishes dramatically, but it still feels that way. That is his one and only genius, to scare people.
Well, isn't that, I don't know if it's that's called the negativity bias, but the thing of that, you can get 100,
30대 중반이고요.
You can get 100 tweets that are
야간 근무를 하고
positive,
왔고요.
but it's the one that's negative
영어 학원까지 다녀온 상태입니다.
you
여러분.
obsess about and you pay attention to.
너무 졸리고
it's sort of the same idea at work. I mean, the fact is, he is still in office, and he's out there taking donations to the tune of $170 million under the heading of paying for baseless election challenges. I'm amazed how many people really believe him that this actually happened and are giving money, maybe not even realizing or not caring that it's not going to election challenges. It's going to a fund that he has access to that he can use really however he wants.
Well, it's mind-boggling, and it's frightening, and it's hard to understand that he has convinced 74 million people that the endless string of lies that he tells, culminating in the lie about who won the election. I mean, it would be one thing to make that claim if the election had been close. Now we know it wasn't even close.
And the thing about people who are authoritarians is that one of their key tactics is say it over and over and over again. If you look at Trump's feed right now, this is all that's in the feed. One nonsense claim after another after another. And I've always felt that what Trump is instinctively so smart about is that at a certain point people say, okay. Now, not everybody says that, but way more people say that than we would have hoped.
Yeah, I mean, it exhausts you. It just, at a certain point, people just give in, and I think that's what the, strategy he's pursued in business as well. It's just sort of this unrelenting shamelessness, and at a certain point, decent people start to say, okay, you know what, I don't want to live in this world anymore. Let him do whatever he wants in this particular instance. You've said before the president's quote, loyalty is to his own survival. How much do you believe his own survival is now tied to his grip on the Republican Party? I mean, does he need them for the next 4 years? I mean, I assume